It's my privilege to welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen, to BBRO's Winter Conference in 2015. We have a packed day of presentations to give you, and I'm afraid there's some traffic issues, so there's a few people still coming in, so there'll be people come in. Please don't be frightened to come in when the presentations are going on at the start. A couple of things I wanted to say. Just first of all, a really big thank you to the people who have helped support this event. And as you can see, from the scale and size of the event we put on for the sugar beet crop, it's fantastic. And the sponsorship from the sponsors allows us to put on a professional event, which I think the industry deserves. So that's good. It also allows us to feed you, which I think, with the amount of presentations we've got today, is pretty important. So UPL are the principal sponsor, and special thanks to them. It's also worth mentioning, I'm not going to go through all the names, you know the companies, but again, very important that they supported us. Some of you will have come through, well, you'll all have come through the entrance, and I know there's a lot of forms to fill in, but for us as a not-for-profit organisation, we can manage to leverage some extra money, and I'll talk a bit about that in a minute, from some of the other programmes in rural development and DEFRA. So any money a Scotsman can get out of government, I'll have. So that's the starting point. Okay, just wanted to take you through, very briefly, 3 or 4 slides on BBRO. I think it's important at these events and grower events that we try and continually get a message across about what BBRO is all about, what it does, how it works in the marketplace and the industry that we all work in. I think there's 2 or 3 things this year that are quite significant for us. One, we've had a really good year, and you'll hear about that later. But more importantly, this year I think we'll put 12,500 plots through our own chair house facility, which we've got at Wissington Factory. Again, that's going to be a record, and that shows the interest and investment in the crop, which I think is all credit to everybody here and the industry that we work in. Just a slide telling you a bit about what BBRO is all about. We operate in an organisation in a world, and Mark and I and Colin call the organisation a hybrid research organisation. We realise we can't do it all ourselves, so we collaborate. And this is something you'll hear mentioned throughout the talks and throughout the day. But it's really important to us that we also do our own work. So as I said, we've got a lot of our own trials team, and a great big thank you to all the people that have helped put this event on, and all the people that put the trials together that you're going to see and going to hear about today. This slide, and if you forgive me for indulging you in one of my many slides about strategy and structure, this slide is all about what BBRO does. So in the centre column, the slide, we'll leave the bit to the left in a minute. One of the things we've done is we've reviewed the projects we've done over the last 3 years. So we've spent a lot of time doing that. We've looked at how we control and manage the projects. And this is important to make sure we get the right balance of projects. We also were keen, if some of you remember 4 or 5 years ago, we talked about how use BBRO's levy to leverage more funding would be important. And we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. The targeting of information is really important. And as we get more sophisticated, we need to be able to target to the right growers, the right information. The growers with the right soil types, the growers with the right rainfall. We need to be absolutely targeting what we're doing. So there's a lot of work going to go on over the next couple of years looking at how we make sure we get the right information to the right growers. I think decision support and grower events are very important. Recently did some NFU meetings in Norfolk and Suffolk. Again, these were well attended, and again, these gave us an opportunity to talk to you a bit about what we do. In the final pillar, you see one of the things there about develop and motivate our people. Now, this is something we're all really passionate about, and I'm delighted to say today, you'll start to see a generation change on the platform. I'm probably one of the oldest people now, but round about us now, we've got some really young, exciting people. So we've got Alistair, who's a PhD student from Nottingham. We've got Tamara, again, working in Nottingham, working with Debbie on one of the projects. We've got Jenny, who's heading up a postdoc. And we've got Rachel, who's doing some work at Rothamsted. And they are all here today, and they'll all be down round about in the poster session, which I'll come back to. But I think one of the things that's important for me is getting these younger people through engaging, and it's great to see that they want a real interest in the crop. And sugar beet is a really interesting crop, so it's good to see that. So that's great. And that's a good investment we've done and you've done to support them. So let me come back to this pillar here. What I thought I'd do is just take you through a bit about how we spend the money and what we do with the money that you all give us. So from the industry, the budget is round about £2 million per year. Obviously depends on the crop. But this gives you an idea. We call yield progression, yield stability, and harvest and storage are key themes. What this shows you is the yield progression at 38%. It takes a big chunk of our spending. Within that, you've got the variety program, which is a big chunk of that spend. So there's a big chunk of that as variety, and you'll see some other work going on. The next bit is crop protection or yield stability. We've just completed a call, and this year we'll be changing that. So the work we're going to start next year, the balance will change a bit, as it does every year, but that number goes up because of some of the projects that we're going to start, and I'll cover some of them shortly. Mark will also give you a bit more detail as we go through. You'll see harvest and storage only at 4%, but you need to add in the tear house facility, and you need to add in how we run that. So that brings that to about 12%. But what that shows you in a snapshot is harvest and storage is a key part of what we do in the crop, and it's an area we feel we need to think more about how BBRO develops. So it's one of the areas we're looking at this coming year, looking for innovation, looking for ideas, looking for new ways to try and improve harvest and storage. There's a lot of money in kit, there's a lot of money in that process. So that's an area we'll look at. But that just gives you a general spend split. All that information is down in the poster session. And the poster session is very important because this is one of the things we've been asked often is to get growers ask us what we do. Well, down there you'll see about 22 projects written up in a poster session way, and I've asked them to write these projects up in a way that anybody can understand them. So we've spent a lot of time putting that data together. We'll also take these posters around the road shows and around the open days to allow growers to see a bit more. And there's a bit in the middle there where we want to engage with growers more, to give you an opportunity to ask questions, but also to give us ideas or things that you guys on the ground think would be worth researching. So please take time during the break to get in there and talk to the researchers and make this industry, I think, make this event really work, because that's what will make it really work. That's just some headings of some of the work that we're doing. Now, I said funding, leverage funding was one of the great things we were trying to achieve, and over the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a change in the landscape in agri-tech and agriculture as a whole. It's quite keen now that there's an interest in it, and we've managed for the first time ever to secure 2 projects. I'll not give you the details, as Mark's going to go through that in a minute, but essentially we've leveraged £1.5 million. BBRO will lead these projects. They're collaborative projects. They involve a whole cross-section of other industry partners. But this is great news for UK sugar beet, because that money is coming directly to you. Innovate UK, which is the strategy board, is where we leverage that from. But there's also other things happening in the research landscape. Agri-Tech East, and Belinda's here today. Belinda Clark, who heads up Agri-Tech East, is a venture where we're looking at collaboration, bringing together different organisations, trying to engage with them, trying to see if there's any synergy, to see if we can get research the right way around, so that research is driven by the coalface. That's one of my ambitions. We don't want the researchers doing stuff we don't want. We need to help them. But to do that, we must engage. So that's what we've done. So that's good news for us, good news for us all. 2 or 3 slides left. Just in terms of what BBRO does, rules of engagement. We are a science-based organisation. One of the challenges we have is the marketing arms of some of the commercial organisations that are in the industry can quickly target growers, give you a lot of information. For us to give you a measured response, we need to understand how the work was done, how the claims were made. So it's important to give us time. I know sometimes there's a frustration that we can't give you answers quickly, but to us it's very important that you get the right message. So we're a science-based organisation. We were involved very much in helping put together some of the work and the information that went into the recent documents about endocrine disruptors, and that's part of it. The other thing to say is rotational work. Sugar beet is in part of rotation. You'll hear today some other mentions of this, but the rotation means that the other levy boards play a role too in what BBRO does, and I'm very keen to engage with them, and seeing the changes that you're seeing now at AHDB and the leadership, Jane King, Peter Kendall, you'll see some real changes, I'm sure. And I think it's important that we look at that as a whole industry, not just as sugar beet. So there are some things where sugar beet can work with other crops. And we work on behalf of the whole industry. I think this is very important. So we work on behalf of the whole industry. We sit in the middle and work on behalf of the whole industry. That's an important message to give. Final point there is we are impartial, and we like to give good quality, as I said, information and advice. So we're more than now a commissioning body. We're trying to target the industry needs. To do that, we need to engage with you. So today is all about that. The next 3 points is what I really want to talk about, is how we create a dynamic environment for change. And for this industry to take the challenging steps it needs to be competitive going forward, we need to keep pushing the boundaries. And one of the things we're going to look at is how we create this environment where all of you can engage and work with us in a positive way to try and develop new opportunities for the crop. And one of the outcomes of that is we've reviewed how we work just now, and I think it's an opportunity for us to broaden our structure and create a new stakeholder board. And that's something that will be coming in the next couple of months, where I'll be looking at developing a new board with a broader range of stakeholders to reflect the broader needs of the industry. And they'll help direct and focus and support BBRO in its activity. So on to today. Colin Walters will chair the first session. So I'll not spend a lot of time on this, but Don Pendergrast is here from the NFU. He's just going to go through a bit of his presentation on some of the work that the NFU have commissioned in Healthy Harvest. Mark will do a roundup of the projects we talked about and we've just mentioned in terms of the call and the recent work. We then got David's going to talk about GPS and some of the technology, and more importantly, it's good to hear from a farmer on the platform. Again, this is important to us that we've got connection to the actual grower base. It's really interesting talking to David last night about how he viewed some of the work that we do. Then we've got a speed dating session for the drill manufacturers. So we've got Caernarvon, Vardastat and Tucan all present, and we'll let them do a quick spin through. One of the other things that comes up, we often get a lot of questions from growers. Sometimes they're all the same questions. So we've tasked Debbie Sparks to try and answer some of these questions for you all today in a way that hopefully will become clear. And again, Debbie is around all day. But this is important. This is about dialogue. Because one of the things that we also have identified is it's not the work we do, it's the work we don't do. And we need to be better at explaining why we don't do the work we don't do. So it's a bit of a communication challenge. Then there's the poster session, as I've said. There'll be a team of people around there. Please get in there, talk to the researchers, challenge what they're doing, have a discussion. In the afternoon, we'll have lunch. And in the afternoon session, we've got Julian Cooper, who's going to do Making Sense of Sugar. In the press just now, good arena and event to talk about that, we felt. Catch cropping, a story of catch cropping, highly topical at the moment. But do we know enough about it? I'm not sure we do. But some long-term projects started back in 2010 at Sol Farms and with the UEA, and they'll give you some real good working farm examples of what's happening. Then we've got Waitrose, and again, a well-known retailer, but Waitrose are going to cover some of the views from their perspective, and I think that encompasses the whole British food side. And finally, Mark is going to talk a bit about the season we've had, which as you know, we've been in a good shape, and we're looking at record yields. And I think Mark's going to try and capture that by actually focusing on some real numbers, share that with you all, so we can have a bit of a dialogue. And that's us. So that's the agenda. Couple of things just before I hand over to Colin to chair the next session. I know you filled all these forms in coming in, but I'd really be grateful if you filled in some feedback forms going out, because to do that, we can then capture some value. We'll also be sending out a survey after this event. And one of the parts of that survey is we're going to look at developing skills. We're looking at operator training in partnership with a couple of regional colleges. This is where we want to get the people on the ground connected and enthused about the crop. So the people that are driving the harvesters, the people that are doing some of the technical stuff in the crop, we want to engage with them and really make them become passionate and understand the whole sector. So we'll be setting up some training programs, but we want to ask you some questions about how we do that. So that's coming on at the end. So that's all I've got to say. I'll be here all day. If there's any questions or any of you want to catch me, please do so. I'll now hand over to Colin, who's going to chair the next session. Thank you very much.